Just a reminder, these are all my opinions and are of course subject to change. This is all subjective after all. Discussion is always welcome, just don't be a butthead. Disaster films. One of my favorite genres to watch, if I'm being honest. There's something about the raw stupidity that makes my tiny brain melt with enjoyment. It's probably because I grew up with tornadoes and then moved to Florida just in time for the state to get hit by 4 hurricanes in a 6-week period. And as a kid, I remember my neighbor's roof blowing down the street. So let's kick off a whole month of these types of movies and get sucked,
What did he say?
up in a good time with Into the Storm. 2014 is a very mixed bag for movies. You had movies like Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, The Grand Budapest Hotel, Edge of Tomorrow, Fury, and my personal favorite of that year, The Maze Runner. Then you had all this garbage. Lots and lots of garbage. But in between all that is Into the Storm. This is a unique movie that takes the popular handheld camera first-person view thing and uses it as a filming device for storm chasers and high school students. The movie even sets up the premise to include things that make the handheld view work within the story, and overall, I enjoyed the take and it made for some really cool moments. Into the Storm opens with teenagers in a car getting horror movie stalked by a tornado until it lifts up their car and kills all 4 of them. We then jump to our main teenage boys of the movie, Donnie and Buff Freddy. Do you guys remember Freddy from iCarly? He's the younger brother of Donnie, and I will only be referring to him as Buff Freddy. Their dad is the vice principal at Silverton High School in Silverton, Oklahoma, because every tornado movie has to be in Oklahoma. But he gave every student a project of making a video message for a time capsule that everyone will open in 25 years with messages from their younger selves. Turns out their dad is pretty good at ignoring them, and ever since their mom died, there's been some issues with the testosterone-filled house. We then cut to our storm chasing crew led by Pete, his cameraman Jacob, and second cameraman Lucas. They're followed by a van driven by Daryl, who is a backup cameraman, and Allison, the meteorologist of the group. The whole crew is on edge because all season they've missed all the tornadoes, and this research is vital for tornado stuff, and the footage is important because Pete is making a movie from all of this. For our third and final party members, we get 2 hillbilly characters, Reeves and Donk. Yes, you heard me right, Donk. The hillbilly daredevil who crashes his ATV into a pool and chases tornadoes is named Donk. Most of the characters in this movie are only here to give us different shots of the storms from different perspectives, but this movie is only an hour and a half, and its biggest flaw is how it drags between the storm chaos. So to get us to the fun bits, we're going to have a quick
Magnum Speed Round.
Let's rapid fire all the plot points you need to know so we can jump into the fun. Pete gives us a tour of the Titus. Donnie runs off with his crush Caitlin to an old paper mill. The storm chasers go to Silverton to find a tornado. High school graduation gets rained out. Storm chasers finally spot their tornado. It only takes 20 minutes, and Into the Storm gives you exactly what you want.
It's like a reward.
The storm chasers pull off to the side of the road, and the Titus plants itself in the path of a tornado so Pete can finally see what the eye of a tornado looks like. Unfortunately, it takes a hard turn and pieces out to go wreck the school, which also just so happens to be the town's storm shelter. The tornado does hit the school, and after an intense moment of people being sucked up into the storm, the tornado only partially damages the school before once again dipping out. Now, there is this whole subplot in this movie about Donnie and his love interest Caitlin being trapped at the paper mill. It's boring and does nothing for the plot, so I will be skipping over all of that until it actually becomes relevant. The dad gets a voicemail from Donnie telling him that he's trapped at the paper mill, so the dad and Buff Freddy head out to rescue him. The storm chasers end up downtown with the hillbillies just as another tornado touches down in front of them. After waiting way longer than any normal person should, they decide to run away from the whirlwind heading straight towards them. At the same time, the dad and Buff Freddy are driving through and spin out and crash. Everyone seeks shelter in a nearby store while the dad and Allison hang on for dear life. Luckily, with goals aligning, the storm chasers agree to take the dad and buff Freddy to the paper mill because that's where the next tornado should touch down. Unfortunately for them, while en route, tornadoes start touching down all around them, which causes the van to tip over. Meanwhile, our lovely hillbilly friends are trying to get footage for YouTube so they can be famous. While doing so, they thankfully get sucked up and exit this movie. With their van on its side and surrounded by tornadoes, and also a friggin' fire tornado, oh hell yeah, Into the Storm, let's go! The group rushes towards a church, but not before Jacob, the cameraman, walks towards the fire tornado for some idiotic reason and turns into the Human Torch for a few seconds. Finally, a movie that's not afraid to use a fire tornado the way we want to see a fire tornado be used, by sucking someone up and catching them on fire. Jacob's death makes Daryl quit and stay behind, while the rest of the group uses the Titus to flip the van back upright. Because Pete only cares about the footage, he takes the Titus and leaves, so the rest of them head to the paper mill. The dad arrives in time to help Donnie and Caitlin escape the flooding wreckage, and we also get a dramatic CPR scene. I'm starting a disaster movie counter for dramatic CPR scenes because I know this genre loves to use them. Eventually, he does the cliche Hollywood thing of spitting up water and coughing himself awake. Pete shows back up because he needs to prove that he's not a selfish guy, and it turns out the tornadoes are combining to make a super tornado. With the warning signals out and the entire town taking refuge at the school, our ragtag team races off to save them. The mega tornado is a cool idea. The only thing working against it is this movie's $50 million budget and the not so great tornado effect. So the whole town takes off in school buses and cars to outrun the massive swirling cone of death. But uh-oh, our heroes and some townsfolk get stuck because of a downed power line. Luckily, Donnie knows of a storm drain nearby that should be enough to protect them. As the tornado approaches, Pete decides to take the Titus and use it to help shield everyone inside the pipe and get a front row seat to the storm of the century. Because this thing is massive,
That's what she said.
it turns out to be more than the Titus can handle, and Pete gets sucked up into the storm. Oh hey, I just got it. Into the storm. A lot of people get sucked up into the storm.
Oh, that's why they call it that.
Anyways, he gets a brief glimpse of peace outside the chaos before hitting the ground. The movie wraps up with the town rebuilding and the sons and dad being a happy family again. It's funny that Twisters, the new Twister reboot, remake, or sequel, I'm still not sure what exactly that will be, but in the trailers for that movie, they show 2 tornadoes and a fire tornado and a mega tornado. And I had no idea that those would also be in Into the Storm. It's just lacking a charming lead like Glenn Powell. The writing is bad, but in a way you can laugh at. And the effects aren't great, though the destruction is still fun to watch. I think the saving grace of this movie is the unique disaster film first-person perspective, even if it cuts away during some of the best moments. Oh, but I did forget that the hillbillies survive, and they say they're going to be YouTube famous. And that's pretty stupid. I still think that all things considered, Into the Storm deserves a spot in So Bad It's Good. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, check out my video on the movie Atlas, a Titanfall ripoff. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below what you'd like to see me cover in the future.